Hi, this is Nicole Roberts Jones, and welcome to Amplify Your Brilliance. What I know for sure is that one of life's greatest gifts will meet you when you go after your more. And so here is where I share with you thought-provoking insight and behind-the-curtain conversations with women who have reached the pinnacle of success because they went after their more. And I really want you to get this. One idea from these episodes can make a remarkable difference, not just in your business, your career, but in your life. Also, make sure you join the conversation in our Facebook group. Go to thebrilliancetribe.com. Now grab your pen as we begin today's session of Amplify Your Brilliance. Hi, this is Nicole Roberts Jones, and welcome to this first episode of 2020 for Amplify Your Brilliance. Now, as we start a new year, of course, comes resolutions, right? Goals, desires you want to go after for this year. But what if I were to challenge you and say that your goals, the aspirations, the resolutions that you set for yourself aren't big enough? Yes, I'm talking to you, successful woman. And yes, I am bold enough to say they aren't big enough, right? Because see, the problem is that when you get to a certain level of success, you often start to live in safe mode. Like you start to only aspire to the promotion that you can see how you can make it happen. So you really only set goals that you see the strategy to obtain. But what if I were to tell you that God desires more for you? He desires more for you than what you can see. Matter of fact, God wants, as it says in Ephesians 3:20, he wants abundantly above all that you could ever ask or think. And my hunch is you do too. And that's why you're here and that's why you're listening to this episode. So I want you to know that I created this episode for those desires, that inner yearning that you didn't write down on that list of things you wanted to accomplish this year. And what if I were to tell you that all that you really, really desire is possible for you, but it will require you to step outside of your comfort zone. It is require you to step outside of your norm. And can I tell you that the greatest threat to your breathtaking future is your familiarity? And see, what I've found when coaching successful women just like you is after you go after what's possible, you often leave what you may call impossible out. When in all actuality, it's what you think is impossible. It's those big, bold dreams that keep you up at night. So I'm here as your sister friend to challenge you as you start 2020 by giving you the tools to go after your big, bold dream. And it starts with you understanding the power in becoming. So I first have to tell you that those big, bold dreams are connected to your purpose. Yes, you have purpose. And when God's purposes are rumbling inside of you in order to become who you need to be to go after it and move into your next level, it will require you to leave your life and your career as you know it. Now, an example of this is found in the story of Abraham in the Bible. In Genesis 12:1-2, it says, before I tell you, read this Bible verse. So Abraham's name changed. He started as Abram, his name changed to Abraham. It's a whole long story. But because he said yes to his next level, God changed his name because he became a whole new version of himself. Okay. So in Genesis 1-2, it says Abram, but it is talking about Abraham, just so you know, as I read this, or if you go look it up later. Okay. So again, here's the Bible verse. Now, the Lord had said to Abram, get out of your country, from your family and from your father's house to a land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. Okay, first, God tells Abraham that you must move out of your country, which is all Abraham has ever known, right? And why? Because God knew Abraham could never step into all that was possible for him without first stepping out of his norm, out of his complacency. And I really want you to think about it. See, when you're comfortable, you're on autopilot. You do things the same way you have always done them. You're not growing or expanding. You're just existing. Plus, the people around you expect for you to keep doing what you've always done. And that is more than likely where you are. So you may be doing great, just like Abraham was when God interrupted his life. And this interruption for Abraham, just like this interruption for you, is because what God envisioned for Abraham was so much bigger than his current situation. See, God knew that in order to move Abraham into that expanded vision for his life, he would have to move him outside of his norm, which is the same for you. See, for many of you, your current job is not big enough for your gift. Sure, it may have been when you first started out, and now you have the career you always wanted, right? Matter of fact, you have the corner office, you probably have the title, the expense account. You have it all, and yet God has even more for you. And that is why you have that rumble in your belly, that desire for more. Because you, like Abraham, you are being called into new territory. And how do I know this? Now, for those of you that have not heard my story, it's because, yes, I too had this moment in my own life where I felt a yearning for more, which was the beginning of my own becoming. And it all started back in 1993. See, then I had built an incredible career in the entertainment industry, and I had made it to the place I had dreamed of ever since I was a little girl. It was why I had gone to college. It was what my degree was in. Plus, every internship and training I had gone through for years had got me to this place, and I had finally made it. Now, at the time, I was working for Viacom's largest cable network. We had an outreach to over 89 million homes on a weekly basis. And then from there, I was elevated into a casting position working for the #1 TV show on Fox. And then from there, I worked with an entertainment group where what we produced generated over $12.6 billion a year. See, I was doing all of that. Plus, I was going to all the hot Hollywood parties. I was bumping elbows with all the stars. People you've seen on TVs and have watched on films. See, I was living the dream. However, it had become my nightmare. Now, don't get it twisted, and don't get me wrong. Hollywood was great. But in the dark of the night, when I was by myself, I began to feel tormented by this rumble inside of me, making me feel like there was more for me to do. But what could that be? Because I was living in my dream, right? Yeah, I was successful. But in that moment for me, I realized God was calling me out to do and be more. It was that realization that kept me up at night. And to be honest with you, I had matriculated quickly in a field I had always dreamed of being in, and I couldn't dream of doing anything else. So much so that I couldn't even fathom what could be my next, right? And as I tried to talk to my friends about what I was feeling, they all were saying things to me like, Nicole, have you lost your mind? Didn't we just go to this premiere? And didn't you just attend the red carpet event? And so that made me even more confused about what I was feeling. Making me feel like, why would I have this rumble in my belly, feeling like there was more for me to do? So in the middle of me feeling confused about it all, one of my girlfriends asked me to volunteer at a program at our church one night. And as I worked with young women that night, as I worked with them, their eyes lit up, and as their eyes lit up, my heart lit up. And I knew this is exactly the answer to the rumble in my belly. I knew in that moment, this is where I was supposed to be. However, again, this was 1993. There was no such thing as a coach yet. And so I couldn't even imagine how I could turn this thing that was lighting up my soul into a paycheck. This thing wasn't glamorous like my Hollywood paycheck. So I found myself at a crossroad. And in one direction on that crossroad was the only way anyone else could or would ever recognize me. And in this other direction was the thing that lit up my soul. So I had a decision to make. And I don't know if you've ever been there, or maybe you're there now, at a crossroad with a decision to make. A decision between something that's speaking to your soul, that rumble in your belly, versus who you already know yourself to be or how anyone else would accept you. Or at least you think, right? Well, in that moment for me, I realized that in order for me to say yes to this rumble in my belly, leading me outside of my comfort zone, to be honest with you, I realized I had to do it afraid. I had to do it without permission from anybody else. I had to trust what I was feeling inside of me. And I had to do it knees knocking, teeth chattering. See, I made the decision to say yes to that next level, leading me out of entertainment into this thing that I've been doing now since that moment in 1993. And I shared my story with you because what I realized is just like in Abraham's story, anytime God calls you to your next level, it usually involves leaving or saying goodbye to what you know and where you have gotten really, really comfortable, right? See, that next level that God has made for you is why you're feeling that rumble in your belly, that desire to do or be more, or whatever that is for you, right? See, what's happening is your future is calling, and your future is so big that it won't fit into where you presently stand. And can I tell you that rumble in your belly, the inner inkling you feel, is your purpose calling out to be fulfilled? And in order to fulfill it, you must become the you that you have not even met yet. See, the reason you have this desire for more, or whatever that is for you, is because the place you're in now will not shape you for all that God has in store for you next. See, it's not about who you already are, but who you have not yet become, right? And before I give you strategy to say yes to becoming you on your next level, because you know I wouldn't be here without giving you what you need to do to move into your next, I'm going to take a minute and celebrate the journey that you've already had up until this point. So your current normal hasn't always been your normal. I want you to think back to when you started your career, how excited you were to be in the industry. You know, all the work you did to get there, all the years you studied in college, all the blood, sweat, and tears you put in to climb the corporate ladder or to rise to the managerial ranks and then director or whatever that journey has been for you. Even for some of you, it may be that you now own the business. And I really want you to get this. When you began in your career, you were in a place of development and preparation to progress just like you did. And it's the same way you matriculated through school, right? Do you remember? Do you remember kindergarten? Or maybe you started in preschool and then kindergarten, right? Then you went to elementary and junior high and high school. See, each level we all go through in the school system is designed to teach you and train you gradually toward an end goal, the diploma, right? It doesn't teach you everything at once, but it seeks to develop you in a balanced way, step by step. And can I tell you, God uses the same strategy. The only difference is he doesn't tell you what each level is, right? He doesn't say, oh, Nicole, first you're going to go to kindergarten and then first grade. Now you do that. But when you get out into the deep, into your career, into your purpose, he doesn't do that. That's why you need faith. See, just like you did when you matriculated through school and went through each level, each grade, you had to leave that which was comfortable to say yes to the next. See, I remember the sad day I left my 8th grade teacher to go to high school. And I'm sure I've had other goodbyes, I'm sure I've had other goodbyes that were hard, but I really remember this one, right? I remember Miss McMorris and her special care for us, my 8th grade teacher, and how she loved on us and made us feel like family, and really more like family than her students. I remember having to leave the comfort of my safe 8th grade experience behind to enter high school. Now, do you remember having any experiences like that? Look, I can even remember one of my favorite high school teachers, Mr. Salehi. Now, he was my chemistry teacher. And those of you that know me know that science is not my thing, right? But again, he spent time with me. He nurtured my struggling D to become an A student in chemistry, right? I could go on, but do you remember having favorites about your school experiences? Only to have to leave your friends and favorite teachers, to have to leave the environment you had gotten used to that groomed you, that grew you in that moment, to move on to the next. It was time for you to grow, to expand your territory. And that's why you had to leave. That's why I had to leave the 8th grade. That's why I had to leave high school. That's why you did too. Again, here's the difference in your purpose-driven life. God doesn't show us our next level. He doesn't show us what it looks like. And again, that's where faith kicks in. Matter of fact, he doesn't even call us to our next level until we have maxed out our learning in the current level we are in. See, what I know for sure is when you start to feel that inkling in you, it's because you've gone as far as you can go in your current professional pursuits. And matter of fact, you have a larger purpose to fulfill to become that next best version of you and move into all that God has created you to do or be. And it's going to take you leaving the familiar to become you on that next level. And that's exactly why God told Abraham it was time for him to leave. So now I'm going to give you 3 steps that can give you the power to say yes to the expansion of your territory, to give you the power to become you on your next level. Got a pen? All right, get ready to write. So number 1 is I want you to do an environment check. See, I'm sure you've heard the statement or the quote that says you are the sum of the 5 people closest to you or the 5 people that you spend the most time with, right? And think about what that really is saying. Here's what it means to me when I hear it, when I hear the saying. What I get from that is you can't grow any bigger than what or who you have around you. So your environment fosters your growth, and your growth is limited and determined by the surroundings you subject yourself to. So who and what do you have around you? Does it allow you to grow beyond where you are, or does it cause you to stay in status quo? I know at the start of my own journey back in 1993, when I felt my pivot taking place inside of me, many of my girlfriends laughed at me and thought I was crazy. Now, needless to say that I had to find some new friends, coaches, and support as I started to say yes to my pivot to do the work to become the woman that God was calling me to be on the next level, right? See, to do that, I realized that I needed to be in an environment that fostered my growth, my newness, and so do you. Only if you want to go after what's next for you. So you need to be in an environment that encourages you to evolve and shift as you expand your thinking and learn new things, which makes me think of Romans 12:2. that says, and do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. So think about it. What does conform mean? Now I looked it up, and according to the dictionary, it says it means to act in accord with the prevailing standards, attitudes, practices of society or group. It means to be or become similar in form, nature, or character. Now that's what the dictionary said in the Bible. And that's what the definition said in the dictionary. And can I tell you that the reason you have the desire for more is because you have been conforming? You've been acting and prevailing based on what other people have told you should do or be, or maybe you bought into what the world told you should do or be. I know that was true for me. See, everything around me said, stay exactly where you are. Everything around me said, don't change. Everything around me said, this is all you always wanted. And if I would have said yes to that, and all my friends that were telling me I was crazy, I would have conformed to perception and opinion instead of becoming all of what God created me to be. And the reason you should never conform is because God put something special inside of you with a special or a specific purpose in mind, which moves us to number 2. Number 2 is get clear on your DNA. Now, anytime you hear me say DNA, anytime you hear me say it, I mean distinct natural ability. And I wonder if you realize that you were put on earth with a purpose. More than likely, that desire rumbling in your belly is your purpose dying to come out. It's like you're pregnant with it and it's time for it to be born. Now, to talk more about your DNA, allow me to use a segment from Michelle Obama's book, Becoming, to help you here. Now, in her book, Michelle shared something that I think hits home with a lot of women. And here's what she said, and I quote, "Really, it was simple. I hated being a lawyer. I wasn't suited for the work. I felt empty doing it, even if I was plenty good at it." Now, this was distressing. This was a distressing thing to admit, given how hard I'd worked and how in debt I was. And my blinding drive to excel and my need to do things perfectly, I'd missed the signs and taken the wrong road. This meant finding a new profession. And what shocked me most was that I had no concrete idea about what I wanted to do. Somehow in all my years of schooling, I hadn't managed to think through my own passions and how they might match up with work I found meaningful. And that's the end of the quote from the book, right? Now listen, this very passage in Michelle Obama's book is the same crossroad I found myself in years ago. And in going after finding the work that lit up my soul is a moment that I did what I now hold the space for other women just like you to do, which is what I call finding your fierce. Fierce, by the way, is my word for purpose on fire. See, to understand that you have specific DNA, distinct natural ability. But before I start to dig into that, it may be that until this moment, it may have never dawned on you that you did. Or maybe you have already had that epiphany moment like Michelle, where she was already successful, great, spectacular at the work she was doing, but she hated it. Or maybe you don't hate it. You just feel like I did. See, I had the career I always dreamed of in the entertainment industry and I loved it, but I felt like something was missing. So whether you lack fulfillment or you feel a rumble in your belly crying out for more, I want you to know what you have been through in your career, the lessons you've learned, the expertise you have now is not a waste. Matter of fact, I shared that same expert from Michelle Obama's book at a speaking event that I was speaking at last year. And after I shared it, a woman asked me, "Do you think Michelle Obama going to law school was a waste?" And here's how I answered that question. I said, Romans 8:28 says all things work together for the good, not some things, not a few things. It says all things. So let me ask you, do you think Michelle Obama used her law degree as our phenomenal first lady? Of course she did. And here's what I know is there was more for her to do with all the development and learning she had done up into that epiphany moment, right? Long before she was ever in the White House, she had that epiphany moment. And that yearning she had for more prepared her for what was to come. So here's my question for you. Have you ever stopped to think about what God has called you to do? See, when you were born to this world, God had a plan for you. See, he gave you your specific mix of gifts and talents to make a difference in this world. And yes, you have a calling. Now, listen, while I'm clear, not everyone is meant to be an entrepreneur. We all have a special part to play that transforms this world when we say yes to it. And so, just as I talked about in number 1, looking at your environment and what you have been conforming to, when that inner yearning starts to nudge at you, it's calling you into your transformation. It's calling you into your moment of becoming more of you. And I really need you to get this. When you conform to what is, it's like you never matriculate into your next level. And therefore, you never fully become all of what God originally intended for you to be. Now, listen, in the second part of the Bible verse I read earlier, the Romans, what was that Bible verse? Romans, I'm going back to look at it. Romans 12:2, right? The second part of that Bible verse, and I really need you to get this. It says that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. See, what I believe this means is to allow your DNA, your distinct natural ability, to get in alignment with his perfect and complete intention for your life. And can I tell you that in my own journey, what I have also seen in countless other successful women that I've had the privilege to coach and teach, the hardest thing is for you to truly see yourself and really to see the value your intellectual property brings to other people. Now, you'd be surprised how many things are uncovered about your DNA when you leave your familiar and move into new territory, which moves us into number 3. You got to increase your faith. Now, I said this a little earlier when I talked about how we have matriculated through the school system, right? Now, I think it bears repeating here. See, in life, God does not show us our next level. He doesn't show us what it will look like until we're in the face of that level. And that is where faith must kick in. Now, yes, I'm pulling out the Bible verses today, right? So Hebrews 11:1 says, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. See, it's the not seen, it's the unseen, right? And because you are successful, the reason you have not gone after that big, bold rumble inside of you is because you can't see how. And in order for you to move into the new that God is calling you out to, you have to let go of how and hold on to trust, hold on to faith. And to be honest with you, walking into this new territory is scary. See, God called Abraham to enter into the unknown because that is where he will learn to trust him. See, what I know for sure is in the process of you giving yourself permission to go after that big, bold dream and enter new territory, there is one thing that could stand in your way. You know what that is? It's fear. Now, let me caution you that if your dream doesn't scare you, then simply you're not playing big enough, right? I remember being on a mastermind call once, and Ayala Van Zant was the teacher on that call. And she said, if your dream doesn't make you want to pee on yourself sometimes, you're not dreaming big enough. You're not playing big enough, right? It means you have nice, neat, safe dreams. And if you're going to expand your territory to become something you have never become and do something you've never done, yeah, that's scary. See, when you attempt to go after something larger, you feel like failure is possible. And that's when you have to muscle up the courage to do it afraid. And that is where faith steps in. See, when I think about it, no matter what has stopped me or any of my clients in the past or tried to, right? Really, in us going after that next level, the biggest root to whatever reason they have given me is fear. It's being afraid of what might come, or you started and you got stuck, or it feels like you won't ever be able to make it happen. All of that, or anything close to it, is rooted in fear. And there are all kinds of examples of people in the Bible who did what they knew they were purposed to do in the face of fear. See, when God asked Noah to build the ark, he had never built a big boat like that before. So Noah had to choose to do it in the face of fear. When the angel came to Mary, the Virgin Mary, you know, Jesus' mom, you remember her, and told her that she would be with child, Mary had to go through carrying a baby for 9 months and giving birth to Jesus in the face of fear. And even if you think of modern day heroes, people like Oprah. See, Oprah who left a successful TV show after 25 years to start a network. And do you remember that the own network failed miserably the first year? See, Oprah could have easily quit, but she had to choose to do it in the face of fear. I could go on and on giving you example after example of people, but I guarantee anyone you greatly admire had to stare at their big goal, their big bold dream, their life's work. They had to choose to do it in the face of fear. And then there is our ultimate example, Jesus. Have you ever stopped to realize, or do you remember, or have you ever heard the story of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane? The moment Jesus had right before he was to die on the cross, when Jesus cried out not to go through all he had to go through, he asked God, do I have to do all this, right? That moment when Jesus was afraid. It was in that moment that he had to choose his fear. He had to choose his faith, or he had to choose between fear or faith, I should have said, right? He chose to do what he had to do in the face of fear. He had to choose between living out what he was purposed to do or staying in his comfort zone. Well, guess what? You're faced with the same choice. Will you live in full activation of that brilliance that God has placed in you? Will you live as the highest and best version of who you were created to be? Or will you choose to only do what's easy or comfortable? To live what you feel like doing or what's easiest to do or what others expect of you? See, I've heard it said that God never gives you a dream, a gift, calling, whatever, right? He never gives you that checking your bank account, right? He's not checking your bank account. He's checking your faith. What does all this mean? Living out that gift in you means you will expand your territory and it will push you to grow only if you say yes in the face of fear. Matter of fact, I think God gives us these dreams, these big desires, just so we can rely on him. See, the impossible cannot be done in our own strength, but all things are possible in God. Or as my auntie always says, don't limit God's ability to bless you, right? I realized that anytime I felt the inkling to go bigger in my own life and expand my territory. Now, I got to tell you, I may have been scared to do it, but I knew that seeing my dream in action was greater than my fear. So I had to muscle up the courage, the faith to do it anyway. So let me ask you, do you have this secret rumble in your belly to do something different in your life? Is there a greater future beckoning you? If so, how do you respond? If you're playing it safe and living good enough, you are probably doing your best to ignore those promptings. See, we lie to ourselves when we play small in our lives, when we play it safe by settling for less. See, we end up hiding our dreams, our aspirations behind a mask of mediocrity, people-pleasing, and conformity. So today, I'm calling you out and inviting you into the journey to live beyond good enough and go after your dreams. See, your purpose requires you to become. Your becoming happens as you walk with God and trust his big plan for you. The more you say yes to that rumble inside of you, the more you become. And once you leave the familiar and continuously experience the fulfillment and meaning that happens when you say yes to what God wants for you, trust me, you will never want to go back to that comfort zone, right? Now, for those of you that are saying, yeah, Nicole, that's all great, but now I need help. And you might need help in one of the three areas, your environment, getting clear in your DNA or to increase your faith, or maybe you need help in all three. And I want to support you. And before I tell you what that looks like, let me say something to you, heart to heart, soul to soul, and shoulder to shoulder. We as women must stop being limited by what society has deemed successful for us. See, I want to tell you something really, really real and truthful. The answers you've been searching for are internal. See, if you've been waiting for your title, your expense account, getting your name on lists, or the fact that you have a seat at the table, if you've been waiting for that to give you the fulfillment you've been longing for, well, that's exactly why you've been feeling like there's more for you. And I want you to understand something. Not only have I been where you are, and not only could I be there at any given moment, but the only way that you can begin to shift it is to get around a community in an environment that is led by someone who says you cannot stay there. You see, you've got to be willing to get away and really sit in a place where you can tap into your soul to find the answers you're longing for. And that's why I'm inviting you to join me for 3 days at my Awakened Woman Weekend. Now, you can learn more at awakenedwomanweekend.com. Now listen, this is 3 days of awakening to you, awakening to that rumble in your belly, awakening to the desire to do more and be more, and not only awaken to it, but get the action steps to go after it. See, this is 3 days with me and 20 other focused, successful women who need the support in all three or one of the three that I outlined for you. Again, you can learn more at awakenedwomanweekend.com. Now, I want you to be clear that this is not just an event. This is about you showing up for your life. See, God has already predestined something great for you. But are you living a life? Are you matriculating in a career or a business that's not in alignment with your gifts? Are you matriculating in a career that's in alignment with your birthright to live abundantly? Or are you willing really to show up for your next level? Now listen, the Awakened Woman Weekend was created to foster all three areas you need to expand your territory. It's number one, creates the environment. And actually, I will teach you and help you craft the environment you'll need, not just while we're there, but what happens when you go back home and how do you begin to dwell in the place that really fosters your growth. Number two, getting clear on your distinct natural ability, your DNA. Then we're going to have exercises and activities that will foster the clarity you need and the action you need to take to move into your purpose more powerfully, whether that's to align with your paycheck or it's that inner inkling to start a business, whatever that is for you. I'm going to help you get clear on what that is and the action to take. And then number three, increasing your faith, giving you the principles and practices to grow in your relationship with God. You understand how to tap into God and really the God in you and nurture your spiritual relationship both during our time together and when you leave, plus so much more. I've got to say something here. Now, listen, it may offend some of you, and I'm okay with that because I need some of you to know that this event is not for you. This weekend is not for you. See, if you're more committed to your excuses than you are to becoming the next version of you, and if you're not willing to go bigger, go broader, and be amazing, then I can't have you join us for those 3 days. See, if you're more committed to staying in your comfort zone or even cutting and pasting your past into your present and then even declaring why it needs to exist in your future, then I can't do anything for you. But if you're ready for the support, if you're ready for the environment and the coaching to support your expansion, then I look forward to serving you in those 3 days and really to give you permission to surrender all that you've understood from this point forward on what you need to do and on the woman that you need to be so we can awaken to what you have not done yet and truly setting sail on becoming the highest and best version of who God created you to be. And that starts with having an awakening. And that is why I'm inviting you to join me for 3 days at the Awakened Woman Weekend. Now, listen, through January 15th, the cost is just $197. So again, grab your seat. Only 20 women can join me for this powerful weekend. Again, go to awakenedwomanweekend.com to learn more and register. Now, listen. At this weekend, I want to teach you a new way of thinking and show you a new way of becoming more of you. And those of you that join me for those 3 days, I can't wait to serve you. See, what I've learned through my own becoming and my own awakening is that purpose is more than a destination. It's a journey. And the best part about your purpose is the becoming that takes place on your journey to it. It's about you progressively becoming God's interpretation of you. Now, as I start to close this episode, I want to finish with the second half of the Bible verse we started on, right? So again, Genesis 12, 1 and 2, which says, "Now the Lord said to Abram, get out of your country, from your family, and from your father's house to a land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing." Now, the last part of this says, "I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing." Now, I don't think what the Bible verse means or what it says is that when it says make your name great, I don't think it's talking about you becoming famous or anything like that. What I think this means as I read it is it's saying to you, when you say yes to growing your gifts and talents, you also say yes to all those that need you. So you have to know that there are a group of people that are waiting for you, that need you. See, I believe that God put us each on this earth on assignment. And as you move into your more and you say yes to venture into your next level, you also say yes to all those that are assigned to you as the answer they need to move their life or their business forward. And that is how you too shall be a blessing and how God will make your name great. And to me, that is the real power behind becoming. So now you have the same choice as Abraham did. Stay where you are and conform to the familiar and comfort of who you already are. Stay in status quo or in ordinary, or you could say yes to become the next best version of you, to expand your territory, to be the extra with the ordinary and move into your extraordinary life for 2020. Not just for you, but for all those that need you. And I'm sure you made it this far in this episode because it's time for your extraordinary life to come forth. Listen, I've heard it said that the wealthiest people on the planet are in the graveyard. Let me say that one more time. The wealthiest people on the planet are in the graveyard. See, the graveyard is full of people who died with untapped potential inside of them because they were too afraid to live out their dreams. And I don't want you to be one of those people who never lives in full activation of all that is inside of you. So here's to a 2020 abundantly above all that you could ever ask or think, and to you stepping into the power and becoming the next best version of you. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Amplify Your Brilliance. Now, I want you to walk away from these sessions with value, so answer either one or all three of these questions. Number one, what was your greatest takeaway? Number two, what will you do different as a result of what you heard? See, you may have heard something you've already heard, or you may have learned something new. Either way, don't take the insight that was shared with you for granted. So commit to doing one thing different as a result of what you heard. Number three, what was confirmation for you? What did you hear that confirmed you're on the right path? See, I want you to take a moment and celebrate you. Too often in our journey, we focus on what we're not doing and we forget to celebrate what we are doing. So I want you to share with us something that showed you that you're on the right path. Now again, share. Share either answer number one, what was your greatest takeaway? Number two, what will you do different? Or number three, what was confirmation for you? And share it in our Facebook community. Go to thebrilliancetribe.com and use the hashtag Amplify Your Brilliance. See, each experience we encourage, support, and celebrate as a community. It allows us to expand in possibility and wisdom, in encouragement and love. Now, we've invited you into this community to deepen our journey with being the answer somebody needs and being committed to your next level. So until the next time, be extraordinary, be unapologetic, be bodaciously you, go and amplify.